It's Flip City Magazine, The Parodies, Special Edition, with savage send-ups of The Walking Dead, Star Trek Picard, Stranger Things, The Mandalorian, Guardians of the Galaxy, and more from the first 4 years of Flip City. Get Flip City The Parodies free when you subscribe in print at flipcitymag.com. The world's best satire magazine, and never, ever woke.
Space. A vast, dark void in need of exploration. Yeah, right! Space isn't about exploring, it's about getting rich. What's the fastest way to get rich? By collecting the splinters of Yggdrasil for glorious bounty. Too bad it's also the quickest way to get dead. Join Mistress Graven and her crew of scantily clad scoundrels as they sail the stars in search of the splinters of Yggdrasil. Magic, mayhem, and miniskirts in space. Go to abogrizzly.com to learn more. See you soon, matey.
Lieutenant Rogers, this is a time-sensitive critical mission. You must pre-see the Nazi force and secure the artifact, then get to the extraction point before they arrive. Failure to do so will result in being hopelessly outnumbered.
It's time we take the fight to bed.
The latest news we have of the Allied invasion of northwestern France is still an escalation from the association.
For fulfilling his high objective.
Dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten
A crisis
along the whole North African coastline, the Allies can strike simultaneously.
I like these calm little moments before the storm.
Honeycomb's big, yeah. It's not small, no.
Kiss my entire.
Oh, my darling, not 3 times on the ceiling if you want me.
Your coffee, sir.
Thanks, beautiful.
You're welcome.
This is a man's world.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever the hell you are in the world. It's a big, beautiful, brisk day here in South Atlanta. like the wind is blowing and my dog is barking at leaves running across the lawn. So it's a fun-filled day. We got a good show today. I want to say hi to some people real quick. Like, we got Hal Deer hanging out in the chat. Abo is here. The lovely Carrie is here. Good to see you. And this is that point in the show where we stall like hell to give people time to get in, get the alert that the show's live, because we've got a good guest today that I'm looking forward to introducing. In the meantime, let's get my co-host out here. Where you at, Tanner?
Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Are you getting this wind down there where you're at?
We are. Yeah, it's storming down here. It's all, kind of blustery day.
Okay. All right. And of course, our other co-host, the lovely California Christy.
Hello.
Hello, darling. How are
Good
you?
morning.
Hello.
Good morning from the West Coast, that is.
Yes, from the avocado coast.
I feel weird in chats after 9 saying good morning, because it seems like everybody's on the East Coast, and they're like, not morning.
Yes.
Christy.
I remain envious, however. 21 degrees Celsius where you are today. I don't know what that is in non-communist. You'll have to break that down for me. Christy, I am deeply jealous of that coffee mug. I
really love it.
I may have to fight you for it.
It was a Mother's Day gift. My daughter bought it for me from Renaissance Fair.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Now, I, on the other hand, have my unofficial sponsor in Big and Ate Me. Here we go. Safe House Coffee Roasters. You can go to safehousecoffeeroasters.com and get the freshest and best coffee on the planet from these guys. And look, I don't even get a free cup for sponsoring these guys. It's the other way around. Some friends of mine, good people, own the place. Great coffee. Nationally ranked in the top 10 coffee shops in America. And in the
-7 is still cold. It's negative.
That's -7?
Yeah.
21? Ooh. So we're going to bring our guest out here in a moment and let him just kind of hang with us as we do our ramble through the start of the show.
Our rants and raves.
Rants and raves about the issues of the day. My guest is a Navy veteran, uber nerd, and comic book creator, Mr. Darin Wagner.
Darin.
Hi, it feels good to be on the coffee shop.
Welcome. Where's your coffee?
I slurped it down ahead of time. It is noon where I'm at, so being in the central time zone.
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's 1 o'clock here. I still got coffee.
Okay. Yeah,
because
yes. I forgot.
The real Navy.
Yeah, I stopped drinking coffee in the afternoons a long time ago. But I grew up in a family where my dad would have coffee after dinner at night.
Yeah,
I don't know what he needed. I don't know what he needed to stay up for after dinner, but
Well, I mean, it's you don't drink it for the stimulant. You drink it because it tastes good.
Right. Right.
So, like, until COVID, I had COVID in 21, I think, the Christmas of 2020 into 2021. Before that, I could drink coffee up until bedtime and go to bed and fall right asleep. Since COVID, no, I can't. After 6, no more. I don't know what it did to my metabolism, but I'm a pure blood. I haven't had the jab.
Changed your DNA. It's crazy.
It did something to me. This manufacture. I mean, this this event that took place.
This thing.
Yeah, this perfectly natural event that happened. Paid no attention to that man behind the curtain. Hey, I got a question for the panel and the chat. And this occurred to me. We were talking backstage. Christy said that she had made some poutine and she felt like a real Southern. I said, yeah, that's a Canadian thing, not a Southern thing.
And I felt Canadian.
Well, you could be a Michigander and then be a Southern Canadian.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, yes. But, if someone says, what's a typical breakfast in your home? Darin, go.
Steak and eggs.
Oh, you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Tanner, steak and eggs?
Yeah, steak and eggs, like instantly. That's what I thought.
Oh my God. Christy, what's a typical breakfast out there?
Fried potatoes. Out there in California, probably breakfast burritos with fried potatoes, eggs, bacon, cheese, sour cream.
Okay.
You know you're getting the good stuff too, because it's like straight from the source.
Well, I basically only cook. We don't waste money on going out.
I got you.
Chat, I want to hear from you guys too. I want to hear it from you. Carrie, tell me all about them beans. Abo says
oatmeal and cherries.
Oatmeal and cherries. Get out of here with that. Look, here's a Southern breakfast. All right. Grits, eggs, any way you want them, but you got to add some cheese with your grits, butter, salt, and pepper only. If you put sugar in them, you're not right with God.
Well,
sausage. And I'm talking about patty sausage, not fucking link sausage.
Yeah. It's got to be the patties.
Yeah. The spicier, the better.
Uh-huh.
You can have, a couple of pancakes on the side if you want to, and you can.
You left out an ingredient on those grits, though, Doc.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You sure as hell did.
Butter.
Nope. I said butter, salt, and pepper.
You left out a main ingredient that I've noticed since converting to the Southern way of eating grits.
Frank's hot sauce.
Shrimp.
Cream.
Shrimp and grits is a dinner dish, sir.
Hey, I'll eat that for dinner or breakfast. I don't care.
It's funny you say that. I've been daydreaming about moving back to my hometown, which is in Beaufort, South Carolina. One of the signature dishes at every restaurant down there is shrimp and grits. And if you've never had it, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It is not the same as breakfast grits. It's way creamier, cheesier, seasoned, and with shrimp. Whoo! Y'all,
I like it better. Personally.
Yeah,
I'd eat it for breakfast. This is the guy. Biscuits and gravy. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, homemade buttermilk biscuits. Oh, here it comes. You weirdos in the States eat like pregnant women, putting maple syrup with bacon and pancakes and putting marshmallows and sweet potatoes.
Well,
listen, first of all, Carrie, all of that's good. She appreciates a good coffee, Carrie. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say, in fairness to my UK friends, I did try the baked beans for breakfast one time with some fried eggs. And what did I have? Fried eggs, home fries, not hash browns, and something else. I forget what. But then had the beans with it. It's all right. It's pretty all right.
It's pretty all right.
You didn't have breakfast tea with that, did you?
No, coffee. It's got to be coffee.
Coffee.
But I learned this also when I was overseas. Coffee means different things to different people, just like grits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people talk about Turkish coffee. Turkish coffee isn't a type of roast or a type of bean. It's the way they make it.
It's the way they make it.
They just
and
put
I have one of those cups. Those
grounds of the cups. Pour the hot water over. Drink.
Or that kettle. I guess it would be like a kettle,
Yeah.
No, I was gifted one of those, and I'm telling you, that thing is amazing.
But then when I was in, we'll say Western Europe, I'm not going to disclose anything. I was over in Western Europe, and I ordered coffee, and they brought out some hot water that was stained with coffee. Like when I rinse my coffee pot out.
Yeah. Like, that's a very translucent brown there.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Full English. Bacon, sausage, mushroom, tomatoes, baked beans, black pudding, hash browns. I don't know what black pudding is, but I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I thought that's
I don't know. I would
made
try
with
it,
organs.
But we'll do tomatoes. We do tomatoes with breakfast when they're in season in the springtime here. 3 big slices of a tart red tomato. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, one of the best breakfasts I ever had was when I had a layover in Ireland. Like that, they put us in this beautiful hotel, and then the next morning, they had breakfast ready for us, and I'm telling you, everything was farm fresh. Like, it was so good. Like the bacon, the sausage, the milk. That was the creamiest milk I've ever had in my entire life. It was delicious. It was chilled on ice. And then the eggs, man, those eggs.
I can't find flaw with that. Here's what I do know, though. The best breakfast in the world is served in the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
Picture a chow line the length of a basketball court. And if you can imagine having it for breakfast, it's on that line somewhere. And go back as many times as you like.
Well, I would not argue with you because it sure as hell ain't the Army. It's little yellow track pads and AKA eggs.
Yeah, the first station was the egg station, and it was, how many eggs and how do you want them, including do you want an omelet? Do you want it old fashioned or you want it fluffy? So that's on the grill or in a pan. And I was overwhelmed with the choices, y'all. Here I am. I was raised so poor that I got in a fist fight over a potato once. All right. And I found myself at my first permanent duty station. And they said, what do you, I said, I'd like an omelet. And it was, well, what do you want in it? How do you want it? I was like, I was overloaded. You can't ask me questions like that. I want everything on the bar in that omelet, including I'd like you to put some scrambled eggs in the omelet. Oh my God. The only thing they didn't have was buttermilk biscuits. The Navy did not make buttermilk biscuits.
Oh man.
What's up, LDG? Yeah. And I don't get that, but, all of my exes, none of them could cook buttermilk biscuits. The one I've been with the longest, Tacey, she can cook buttermilk biscuits.
Right on.
It's the secret to longevity in a marriage.
It is. It is.
It is.
It is. Now, for those of you in the UK that think those little cookies are biscuits, no. Think scones without the sugar. Those are biscuits. We've had
I guess that's the closest thing that would be,
We've had that argument. Yeah, one of my narrowboating friends from over in the UK, he sent me his mom's scones recipe, or scones, however you want to say it. And I gave it to my wife. I said, "Can you make these?" I'd like to. She goes, "Yeah, these are just biscuits with sugar in them." Mystery solved.
Mystery solved.
So Darin, for those of you that are meeting him for the first time, some of you have seen him on panels, like on Am I the Asshole with John Dillard. He's always hiding behind his icon. So here's his face, live and in black and white, because if you turn it into color, strange things begin to happen. People are not supposed to be green. All right.
Right.
But for those of you who don't know, Darin is a Navy veteran, and he was what we called a bubblehead, meaning a nuclear submariner.
That's right. Oh, OnlyFans. No.
Dadbomb.com.
LDG is here in the chat as well, and we'll be mentioning him a little bit later on.
Yeah. We said hi to him. Darin, what in the world went wrong in your brain when you're sitting in the recruiter's office as a young man to make you go, I'd really like to go under the water where I can be crushed by water pressure, due to any one person's incompetence on a crew full of people where any one person can be incompetent.
Jeez.
And while doing that, I would like to be near a nuclear reactor. What in the hell was going through your brain at the recruiting station?
Combination of two things. First of all, the novel and movie The Hunt for October was a favorite of mine, and one of the things that I noticed in that movie was that the character of Jonesy, played by Courtney B. Vance, was quite obviously an enlisted guy. He wore dungarees, he was an E5, and yet he contributed so much to what his boat did,
Right.
And I thought, well, gee, if I'm going to be an enlisted guy, I want to, have a position that could matter,
right.
And not just be a guy who swabs the deck and stuff. So I said, okay, I'm going to be that guy. And then Clinton won the election in '92, and I felt like I needed to expatriate at that point, but I couldn't do that because I knew it was only temporary. He'd eventually be out of there. So. But that whole desire to exile myself from society was another factor that led to me wanting to go as far away from everyone and everything as possible. but of course you're not isolated completely. You're in there with a crew of like-minded people. So
like-minded means equally crazy.
Right.
Now, the school to become a submariner, just to be a submariner, not to be a sonar tech, consists of things that would automatically rule me out, like the escape trunk thing.
What's the escape trunk?
What was the washout event in sub school? What was the one that got the most people out of there?
Wearing the firefighting ensemble, believe it or not, that was the thing that got people. Yeah. What we used to call an FFE, I don't know what they're still using because my information all comes from the 90s, and I know they've replaced a lot of equipment since then. Was an air canister that you would wear that was a chemical candle, and you wore it on a vest right here, and you set off the candle, it would chemically produce O2, and for you to breathe, unless you got a bad canister. And every once in a while, someone would get a bad canister. They wouldn't be getting enough O2, but they didn't know it, and all of a sudden they'd pass out. You got to get that mask off right away, and they pull the mask off, and they're a Smurf, they're blue, with purple lips and stuff. So there were a couple of guys who said, "Well, if the equipment's going to do that, bleep this." Can we say bleep, or should I just drop?
Yeah, say whatever.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. That If
don't know if you've heard our reputation here, Darin. There's no soy here.
Nah.
if I can get a bad canister, imagine what the equipment on the submarine was going to be like. There was always, often we had signs in the sonar shack that said, never forget that your equipment was built by the lowest bidder.
Right.
So,
we call those OBAs, the oxygen breathing apparatus. Pull the pin and turn the thing, and that was your breather. But same thing. We would have some that just didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's
the OBA. The OBA was part of the firefighting ensemble. It wasn't the only thing we wore. So yeah, it was.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think they even use those anymore. I think they use some more refined version. I know that they didn't go back. There was a lot of talk about why don't you just go with compressed air like a scuba gear. No, you don't want to have compressed air, in canisters. The reason why we had the candles was because it was relatively stable, just sitting there.
I know I'm just a dumbass tanker, but that doesn't sound good.
No. I mean,
but hold on now. I got to back up here, Darin. I got to back up. The escape trunk training.
Yeah.
The escape trunk training. All right, that's the part where I would just go, no, fuck you. I'm not going to go. I mean, even if I signed up under contract to be a submariner, no, I'll go be a deck ape on a frigate. I'm not doing that. What was that actually like?
Okay, so a couple of things. If you see if you look up online and you look up pictures of submarine escape trainer, what you'll see is a tower that looks like it's about 5 stories tall. And the idea was it's filled with water, and you get in at the bottom, and then you ride to the top. You wearing something called a stinky hood, which is it was named after the guy who designed it. It wasn't,
right.
And so what it is an inflatable vest that also is your air supply. However, when you're ascending, you're not really going to be inhaling, because as you ascend, the air inside your lungs is going to expand, and you have to vent it out. So what we would used to do is take our hands like this and put it above our head and go ho 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 ho, because they trial and error, obviously. If you say ho ho ho, you're exhaling just enough to vent off the air, because if you panic and hold your breath while that's happening, pop your lungs. And they about 10 years before I went in, the Navy finally decided, we don't need a trainer this dangerous, because they would lose guys. Through like every 3 or 4 classes, somebody would have an embolism, somebody would pop, And so what they do now is they have one that's less than, it's a pool that's less than 60 feet deep, just to get, and realistically, if there's a lot of submariners who, if the boat was going down, they say, screw it, I'll just stay on the boat. Because if you're in excess of, a certain number of feet, your chances of survival are slim to none anyway. So why not just go to the cruise mess, make a sandwich in the galley, drink some coffee, and wait for the boat to implode? That's what they would rather do, because they didn't want to be. Let's say you survive. Let's say you get up to the top and you don't have the bends somehow, and your lungs aren't
exploded,
messed up. Well, then you got to worry about all kinds of other things. The elements, obviously, you might turn into shark shit, at some point, things like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys who, and the escape trunk, when I was in, they told me, look, this is just for looks.
Yeah.
We don't, if we have to use this, we're in a lot of trouble.
You're in a lot of trouble.
And
things have gone horribly wrong at this point.
Horribly wrong. Now the interesting thing is when I was in, they had two DSRVs, one on each coast. The Mystic and the Avalon. You saw one of them in the Hunt for October. They actually used it to board the ship. Now that would be a much better way of egressing, because you're going
so
from
you
one
stay with the
pressurized
ship.
environment. Right,
and hope it doesn't crush, and hopes the Avalon or the Mystic come and get you.
Right. Yeah, if it can. Otherwise, one of the comforting things about it was that we didn't ever have to really worry about being captured. The chances of being captured if you're a submarine crew are next to none. But we'll get into the positives here in a second. The negatives.
Oh yeah, everyone's just running to those recruiting stations right now.
You're not going to get captured and therefore tortured by an enemy or whatever. And most of the ways you would die on a submarine are not slow; they're incredibly quick. And even if you do get, say, trapped in a compartment that has dwindling air, you're still inhaling air. You're just not getting O2 in that air, so you're not going to be, holding your neck and stuff. You're just going to slowly drift off to sleep and then die.
Yeah, and I have now experienced what that's like with my hypoxia. It's not unpleasant. It's a lot like getting high. You just Hey, but let's talk about something else here, Darin. Not the positives. Not the positives of being on a submarine, because there ain't none. The silver lining.
The silver lining, yeah.
He had people running to sign up when he said becoming shark shit. Incidentally, a buddy of mine was on a sub tender, the USS Frank Cable, and I went up and we went to school together, so I met back up with him, and we were having chow on the Frank Cable at lunch, and I hung around until dinner time. And then a submariner he knew from the boat right next to him said, "Hey, come over and have chow with us." Like, all right, I've heard submarine chow was amazing. Let's go over there and give it a try. We go, permission to come aboard, and go down. And the moment I was standing on a deck, I got the goosebumps and the heebie-jeebies. I'm already underwater.
Yeah.
I'm already underwater, and this thing's sitting on the surface. I could not get peaceful. I could not enjoy my meal. The whole time I just wanted to get the fuck out of that boat.
Wow.
I go back to where I'm stationed, which at that point was, I think, Paris Island. I was never so happy to be out in that fucking bug-infested jungle.
How was the food, though?
The food was great.
Yeah, but you couldn't enjoy it.
Conversely, the food is shit at the field training unit. It's MREs. It's dehydrated pork patty for dinner. But the world wasn't going to crush me. The world was not going to crush me. Darin, you've got a comic book happening, and I want to talk about that with you for a little bit, because we've hung out backstage a good bit. Darin and I are buddies, and your comic books. You know your comics. What was your earliest exposure to that world?
I was this would have been probably 1978. That was the year. That was an interesting year. for comics in general and characters in them, because that was around the same time that the Incredible Hulk TV show came out. And later that year, I believe, was Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve. So, you had this this movie that came out that blew me away. My dad took me to. It was a 2.5 hour long movie that didn't feel like that to me. That was mythology. That was it was American mythology, especially with sweeping scenes of Clark Kent leaving home in the wheat field.
Right.
That classic Hollywood stuff. And then, of course, all the effects, which were top of the line, state of the art at the time, to make Christopher Reeve appear to be able to do all those things.
You will believe a man can fly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it didn't look hokey at all back then, because that was the best it got. And then I come home, and one day my dad comes in, and he says, tonight we're going to watch The Incredible Hulk, because he had heard about this show that was the TV movie was going to come out. We didn't know it was going to be a series at that point. It was just a made-for-TV movie with Bill Bixby.
Right.
And that scared the shit out of me. I was too young. I was born in 73, so I would have been about 5 years old when that came out. And I had never, my parents kept monsters away from me. They didn't want me seeing. They didn't even like me watching WGN out of Chicago in the summertime, because there could be a Godzilla movie on, or some kind of
no.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't understand they didn't understand the nuances between monster movies, but things like that. And I was the kind of kid, when I watched the Wizard of Oz, the flying monkeys were really creepy to me. So I'm watching this with my dad, and I had no clue what the Hulk was or anything. I'm watching this, and he was the first monster that I got to know. And Lou Ferrigno, of course, was big and freaky at the time. He was fresh out of bodybuilding competition, so that's why my dad wanted to see it, because back in the 70s, you didn't see a lot of bodybuilders on television, believe it or not. The regular hunk actors didn't want them on screen with them, because they didn't want to look small next to these people. And so, but the Hulk was the perfect vehicle for getting bodybuilding into the mainstream between Lou Ferrigno and Arnold in the late 70s and into the 80s. That was, they changed, the popular image of what a man ideal infit or kick-ass guy would look like. And so anyway, yeah, I got scared from the Hulk as soon as the eyes turned white. I'm like, what's happening? And then he's ripping his shirts. So had no idea that he wasn't going to kill anybody. That wasn't part of the formula. But and so in order to take the edge off of the TV show or the movie, my mom bought me a bunch of comics that happened to be at a news spinner rack somewhere, and brought them home and just gave me a stack of them. They were mixed of DC, Marvel, everybody, and that's how I got started. And got interested, and they were better stories than what I got on Saturday morning cartoons.
Sure.
Super Friends was it was Justice League, but those stories were designed for short attention spans and
very weak tea.
Yes.
At the same time, Darin, and I'm asking this because of your book that you were kind enough to send me a copy of. You were kind of getting into Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, kind of. What was the other one? Was it Creep Show?
Yeah, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits. There was also One Step Beyond, I think, was another show that came out of that era. And all these anthology shows like Tales from the Crypt, things like that. Again, parents bought me a book that was a collection of all the short stories, or most of the short stories that had turned into Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh, that's cool.
So you had like a lot of Richard Matheson in there with the original version of The Howling Man, and for example, I Sing the Body Electric, which became that was an episode as well, and The Beautiful People, which became one of my favorite episodes of all time. Number 12 Looks Just Like You. And, all about cosmetics and bodybuilding and reconstructive surgery and a dystopia that uses that to keep everybody in check.
Which leads me to this question. As a young kid, when I discovered comics, I immediately identified. Yes, I love the stories, but I identified with the art. I obsessed over George Perez and John Byrne. I would recreate their pages. I would draw the panels. You're a writer, and you've obviously been influenced by all the things we've been talking about. Was that what identified for you? Did you read these books and go, I can do this?
I read the books and I said, wouldn't it be great to be able to do something like this, right? You're reading a story that from John Byrne is very different than reading a story from Walt Simonson or reading a story from Frank Miller, excluding the artwork. There's just certain things that each one of them does, and there's certain things that they like to do. I mean, Frank Miller likes to turn prostitutes into Valkyries and Amazons. He likes to he likes to take his jabs. He likes to take his jabs at the Catholic Church, which I grew up. I was raised Catholic at the time, and not anymore, but I was raised Catholic growing up. So I took notice of that stuff. John Byrne likes to reference Star Trek wherever he can in a lot of his stories, or used to. Yeah. And he also has a tendency to over-explain, which I didn't realize he was over-explaining things. So that's a habit that I have as well. Just taking an aside.
Who was your favorite? Was it? Did you lean more towards John Byrne, and then that influenced your writing style, or? For
comics, yeah. For comics, it does. Later, though, I came to appreciate Walt Simonson a little bit more.
I mean, how can you not?
How can you not? Yeah, I mean, a lot of these writer artists are such good storytellers because they're doing both and they're able to maximize both. You look at these guys in the 80s who were allowed to take over failing titles like Daredevil and Thor, and now they're making movies based off of the concepts that they explored and the changes they made.
And I've contended for a while, Darin, that it is the writer artist all in one that tends to make the best product, or at least the most consistent. In other words, everything jibes. The story and the art really sing together. But setting aside comics and setting aside kind of the pulp horror stuff, what about the wider literary world? Were there writers out there that really just did it for you? You mentioned Hunt for Red October. Did you read the book, or did you just watch the movie?
No, I did read the book. I also read Red Storm Rising. When Tom Clancy got away from the naval stuff and started going into special ops and stuff, that's when I kind of checked out a little bit. I wasn't as interested in that because again, Star Trek, huge show that franchise that I watch, and so anything involving people serving on a ship is more interesting to me than any kind of ground pounder.
Okay.
So
I mean, you couldn't translate that to an away team. Come on.
You could.
Rainbow Six is just an away team.
Yeah. But I mean, at that point, then I also started seeing a lot of things because his novels read a lot like nonfiction.
Right.
Reminds me a little bit of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. About 50% of that book is just telling you how whaling works and how they did things.
Yes.
And how they manufactured the things.
Hello, Yvette.
On the boat. Hey, Yvette.
Yeah, and that's the question. So we segue to Melvin. What other writers have you read in the broader literary world that kind of not only influenced you, but that you just really wanted to get their next book?
Back when he was hot and still on drugs, Stephen King was one of my favorites. The trifecta of. I'm sorry, he's just not the same guy anymore that he was when he was writing.
He's not. He needs his drugs.
Yeah, when he was coming out with Salem's Lot, The Shining, and probably brain fart, the one about the disease that kills the Stand. Yep, that's what it was. Yep, The Stand. that era of him was where he was peaked for me. Yeah, Christine also. And that was back, in the 80s, of course, everything that he was writing was turning into movies. Even short stories that couldn't sustain a movie were being used as the premise for movies, Graveyard Shift.
What was it, though, Darin? Let me put a fine point on it. What was it about King's writing that drew you in?
He used to know, I don't know if he still knows how to do this, but he knows how to portray small-town people and he introduces you to a community and introduces you to a whole bunch of characters, and yet he's able to when you're reading them, you're able to keep each one distinct. No two characters are so alike that you don't.
Right.
Okay, was this the guy that that owns the store, or and he just seemed to understand people who live in small towns and how they're inherently different than people who live in a big city, and yet still also the same as people who live in a big city, just on a different, in different ways. So that was the big thing.
I'll make sure if something happens to you, we remember you that way.
We got you.
I pick on Stephen King a lot because he deserves to be picked on. Lately, he's turned into
just a horrible human being. Just a horrible human being.
I would just wish people would stick to what they do. If you're an entertainer, then entertain.
Yeah, one of my favorite writers is Stephen Brust. He's been doing the Vlad Telltose Dragera series since the 80s. Bestseller, won all these prizes, but nobody really knows who he is. But on a personal level, I would probably end up punching him in the mouth because he's a hardcore communist.
Yeah.
I mean, just hardcore believes in it.
Wow.
But anyway, so I can appreciate his art without getting into his mentality of how the world ought to be. Clancy for me was a big one because of the intricacy of his storytelling and the way he could characterize people. Although if I heard him put the following words into Jackson's mouth one more time, I'll shoot him in the lips. As a fighter pilot. Shoot him in the lip, shoot him in the lip, strapping an F-14 to my back, strapping an F-14. He used that same line over and over again. I'm like, all right, you wrote a very one-dimensional character here. Right. I get it. Move on. But like Tolkien, with the richness of his tapestry, building a huge history behind everything that's happening was a big draw for me. Stephen Brust, it's his first person characterization of the world around him and the way he describes things that I found really compelling. But going back to comics, the crazy guys, Alan Moore, wrote some great stories.
He did. I don't think he was on drugs either.
Yeah,
that shit crazy.
He is nuts. I mean, the more I learn about him on a personal level, I'm like, ooh.
I went to FallCon in Minneapolis. This would have been about 25 years ago. I don't know. It was 2002, right in there. And I talked to Xander Cannon, who was one of the artists who worked with Alan Moore on a title called Top 10, which is one of my favorite comics. It's basically superhero cops in a city populated by the ancestors of superheroes and monsters and robots. So it's Hill Street Blues with capes. It's
right.
It's a police drama. And I asked him what it was like, working with Alan Moore, and he's like, well, basically it's all very one-sided. He told me that I would get this package in the mail. It's the script for a 22-page issue of Top 10, but the script itself was almost 100 pages long, because he'll do about 10 pages of writing for every 1 page of comic book storytelling. And sometimes he'll say, well, if you do this, then you can do this over here, but if you do this back here, then you got to do that, and it was almost like a choose your own adventure kind of book he's talking about. And it was you'd get a script and you'd have to sit down and really pour over it. And it was all typed. He didn't work on a computer. He used a typewriter, and he sent that was the manuscript. I don't know if he photocopied it and kept a copy for himself, but he had the actual type, that was how he worked. And once
that's how he did Top 10.
Yeah, that's how he did Top 10. Apparently, that's how he does everything. He doesn't do draft. You get his first draft, his consciousness kind of stuff, and then you make head or tail of it, and you select panels, and that's it. He's done at that point.
How did you feel about ABC Comics when they came out?
I did like them. I thought that Alan Moore was, and this was also true of his Supreme work. Over at Rob Liefeld's company. I can't remember.
Yeah. Extreme. Yep.
Yeah, where he was trying to he was largely responsible for the deconstruction movement in superhero comics. Taking characters and breaking them down and basically showing that they're not really what you thought they were, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he felt bad that industry followed his lead and tried to do that with everybody. And so he became interested in a lot of what I would call superhero reconstruction, where he would take something and reconstruct it back into a more child-friendly form. He did that with Tom Strong. He did that with the other big one was like I said, Supreme. Right? He took this character that Rob Liefeld created that wasn't great, but he saw something in that. It's like, okay, the look of this character is great. I'd like to do my own version of it. And
then the artwork with the artwork with Alex Ross was quite amazing.
Yeah.
But
and he would come up with these panels that were like classic Superman panels. Like, obviously you have the famous panel where a spaceship has crashed into the Kent's field and they're looking at it in the crater or whatever. Well, he did this thing where this little farm boy and his dog find a meteorite that had landed in their field, and that's what gives him the powers that, that's what transforms him into Supreme. And so it's shot very similarly, but it's not the same subject matter, but it evokes that feeling, that classic superhero feeling. And that was I think just brilliant. And when he wants to be, when he wants to create something that's clean cut, very Americana, he can do that. It's just getting him to do that. His other modus operandi is whenever he can, injecting some sort of sexual perversion into every character you like, or characters and suggesting things that make you go, I like this character, but big one for me was Top 10. You had a character in Top 10, their lead sergeant, I believe, who was basically a sentient talking Doberman who sat in a suit that made him appear to be a human being with a Doberman head.
I remember that character.
And the dog, and some woman falls in love with this dog, falls in love, like romantic in love, and at the end they go up to her apartment, and I'm like,
gross.
I don't want to know. It's like, don't
gross.
Yeah, and it's like, why did you put that there? It's just beautiful, and all of a sudden, go ahead.
Darin.
Yep.
Another thing people might not know about Darin. He likes to think outside the box. Cryptids are a thing, which leads us smoothly into DEMI-FOOT. Play that trailer for us, Tanner.
I sure will.
All right. Yeah. So who is DEMI-FOOT?
DEMI-FOOT is a man monster, a superhero of the subgenre of the monster hero, in the same vein as Swamp Thing, the Incredible Hulk, Ben Grimm, Werewolf by Night.
Sure.
And what he is, simply put, is a human being who finds himself possessing Sasquatch characteristics. So he is not. He's not quite a Bigfoot. He's a demi-foot.
All right, hold on. Let's roll it back a little bit. What's this guy's name?
His name is Jake Yeager.
Jake Yeager, an unassuming. What does he do for a living?
He was a Navy diver, but he got the bends and it ruined his joints. So he comes home and shenanigans ensue, and eventually he finds himself looking very, like what you saw in the trailer.
Okay, all right. So he's bitten by a radioactive Sasquatch.
Not quite.
Now you were sharing with us. Now, obviously, he's a big guy. He's strong.
Right.
I love this detail though. He didn't want to look like a monster, so he's got the bouffant. He's got the pompadour. Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, we got this scene in the comic that's there where he wakes up and discovers that he's changed, and he looks in the mirror and he's like, doing the usual horror movie reaction. And his hair is long and grungy, kind of like, Kurt Cobain-ish, kind of like the Wild Man of the Woods kind of thing. And so the only thing he can do is try to style it. And he grabs a Flowbee and basically and some pomade and gives himself a haircut called an executive contour haircut. My grandfather was a barber, so he.
Wow.
That's
the executive
awesome.
contour. I love it.
Yeah.
Now I gotta ask you, Darin, because I know you.
Mm-hmm.
You sent John references for that, didn't you?
I did.
Hey, here's what this haircut looks like. Draw this.
Yeah. Well, John Dillard is, by the way, the artist. And by the way, before I forget, that trailer that you just saw was cut together by LDG of LDG Free the Net.
Right.
Cool.
When I say that I got to talk to my guy in the chair about that certain stuff, that's the guy in the chair. So it does great work.
So LDG, what we need is we need that trailer cut down to about 30 to 45 seconds. If you can make that happen.
See, he's a very busy guy right now. So
I believe it.
Yeah, he does good stuff too. I've seen him. I've seen his stuff. Right. I was going to ask you. Excuse me. Is the transformation permanent or is it a back and forth?
Initially, it is permanent. He is stuck that way.
Okay.
And so in that, one of the things, obviously, when you look at a character like that, gray skin, muscles, people are going to immediately think the Incredible Hulk, or at least the Gray Hulk, as made popular by Dale Keown and such. But he doesn't have the Jekyll and Hyde problem that the Hulk has. He's himself in both. But he's initially stuck. Now I'm playing with the idea of changing that up a little bit. But then of course when you start doing that, you have to be very careful because there's certain things that he won't be doing. For example, the Hulk's thunderclap, when he claps his hands there, that's a signature Hulk thing. And if I put that in there might be a call from Disney Marvel. That's something that Rob Liefeld sort of pioneered for us all. He created he had bought the rights to a character called Fighting American and gave him a shield, and Marvel came after him saying, you got a patriotic hero with a shield here, you can't do that. He essentially won in court. The only stipulation was he couldn't have Fighting American throw the shield because that's a signature Captain America, Frisbee of Freedom thing.
Right.
So that's great. That means that anybody can create a patriotic superhero with a shield as long as they don't throw it. Now.
Right. Exactly.
We get Soldier Boy in the boys because of that.
Right.
And
so take us without spoilers on the arc of the first book here.
The first book is the origin story. It's 48 pages, and it introduces who the character is. And by the way, within the first 22 pages, you will understand the character's situation. I'm not writing this in the mystery box format like Yaira over at Ripiverse. I think Rip is doing a great job producing books, but but I didn't care for how we didn't know who she was or what her deal was until like the last 10 pages of a 66-page book.
Right.
Like, I don't
you're along for the ride with DEMI-FOOT all along.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I want you to finish telling us this arc. And in the trailer, we see the wonderful AMC Pacer. And I remember when I saw this before we broadcasted anywhere, you showed it to us. Do you remember what I said to you? I said, you need to keep that fucking Pacer all the way through this book. That's got to become the DEMI-FOOT mobile.
A lot of people had things to say about the Pacer. Yeah, it's like, when was the last time you saw any AMC vehicle in anything, right?
Right.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, that's the yellow vehicle that's in the trailer. The AMC Pacer was possibly made famous by Wayne's World. That was the Mirthmobile.
Right.
And it was a joke in the late 80s anyway. Yeah, because that car had been out of production. AMC had been gone for over 10 years at that point. And the comic takes place in a fantasy version of Wisconsin, much like how Marvel comics, lots of them take place in a fantasy version of New York City. Alpha Flight takes place in a fantasy version of Canada. So this one takes place in an alternate Wisconsin where AMC still exists. And when a production, whether it's a comic book or a movie or a TV show, wants to hit home right away visually that you're not dealing with our world exactly, one of the things that they'll often do is they'll put an airship somewhere in the picture. Like if you think about Batman the Animated Series, so after the Warner Brothers logo fades away, it's a police blimp, a police airship. Well, the police don't use those because but so we're dealing with an environment where their technology is a little different. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have like a Zeppelin, over the city. So I said, well, let's have most of the hero vehicles be AMC vehicles. Let's see AMX, let's see Hornet, let's see Ambassador and Matador and all these names that we don't hear anymore.
Javelin.
And
the Javelin.
Yeah, the Javelin. Yes. In fact, the first image, and I think you have this, Doc. The first image that I had, well, not actually, the first image where we showed DEMI-FOOT in motion or in action was an image where he is ripping the engine out of a Javelin. And I believe you have that somewhere. I hope.
I will look.
Okay. Otherwise, I can bring it up. That's fine. But yeah.
Yep.
So
there it is.
So I told him. I told John. I gave him an issue of an old $6 million Man magazine where he was ripping the engine out of a car, and John got the idea, but he says this is a terrible composition cover, and I was like, I can do so much better. And so okay,
sounds like John.
Well, yeah, well, John is he always gives you more than your money's worth, and
I like to say he's the second best small independent artist out there.
Yeah. But I mean, he's a student of the game as well, which is what I really like.
No, he's really good. He's really good. Good guy too. Let's pull this up. Show the Javelin. Give the Javelin some love there.
Oh, nice.
So he did move the badge. The Javelin badge was never on the door. It was actually in front of the door. But because he wanted it big enough so you could read it, he moved it. I said that's okay. This doesn't have to be exactly like a 1969 Javelin. This can be, this can be the 2023 Javelin or something.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So he did that.
All right. Yeah, so let's get back on this arc now. Come on, stay with me.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. All right. So when Jake Yeager has this story that's been in his family for a couple generations. Where he comes from a family that used to be a lumber baron family, and there was this story that one of his ancestors had struck up an accord with a local Sasquatch tribe to get them to stop harassing his loggers. And it's a story that everybody knows about, but he never believed. And he's in the fits of depression anyway because he's lost his career due to the bends and things. He's walking with a cane. He can't move except very painfully, and so he just wants to go into his family estate and raid the liquor cabinet and just kind of drown his sorrows. And he eventually comes into contact with a mysterious organization called the Shop that is responsible, among many things, for many things, including making sure that Sasquatches aren't ever proven to exist. They want to keep them at the state of folklore and cryptids and stuff like that. So he doesn't believe in any of this stuff at all until he actually becomes something very much like one. And so then he's got one foot in the real world, and he's got another foot in this world that he didn't even know existed. And once he changes, he starts seeing and experiencing things that, in plain sight that few people get to see.
Right.
And so he will be fighting, because obviously he's a big hulking monster. He's going to be fighting things. The stories I've got all delve into the lore of not just the Sasquatch, but also other cryptids like thunderbirds, dogmen, various lake monsters, and also local legends like the Hodag of Rhineland.
Nice.
Yeah. They also, these stories also go into relationships between these creatures and, like I said, organizations that want to keep them at the status of folklore. DEMI-FOOT won't be fighting just monsters, though. He will be fighting also proper comic book supervillains, the government contractors, and also other superheroes as well, just like what you would have found if you were reading any of those comics from the 70s. One issue, Swamp Thing would be encountering Batman, and the next issue he'd be fighting, goblins or something in the swamp. The Hulk would be fighting Iron Man in one issue, and Doctor Doom in another, and then his own, one of his own rivals like Rhino or Absorbing Man, things like that. So we keep it squirrely. We don't want to be like, I don't want it to be like X-Men, where all they ever fight seemingly is other mutants. Like this idea that I grew up with was that any hero could fight any villain, and sometimes heroes can even fight each other. That's what Marvel taught us, And so,
yes.
This idea that the mutant menace is only going to be handled by the X-Men and the Avengers wouldn't step in if Magneto is threatening people, is dumb to me.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Same for me. We've talked about this before on this show. It used to blow my mind. The Fantastic Four facing off against the world-ending threat of Galactus. Where are the Avengers? Where are the X-Men?
Yeah.
Where's Alpha Flight? Why isn't everybody here?
Yeah, that should be like an all hands on deck thing.
Yeah, you would think, right?
Right. So I have a very good friend, and we've met him here on the show, Big Buford Ogletree. He's the bass player for Hot Rod Walt and the Psycho DeVilles. Huge fan of cryptoids, particularly Bigfoot. He actually commissioned me to do a Bigfoot versus the Michigan Dogman 11x17 that he then sent to a cryptid channel, and they showed it.
Oh, nice.
I had no idea he was doing that with it. So we were talking about Bigfoot, and he asked me, what's my stance on Bigfoot? And this goes into Christy's world of the conspiracy tinfoil hat over on her show. And my response to her and to him was, I want to believe. I want to believe. Now, I'm not sure I believe in any kind of supernaturalness to the creature. I'm not sure if I ascribe to missing link ideology. I think that if such a creature exists, it's a separate, standalone hominid that just happens to occupy some very remote spaces in North America and in Asia.
Right.
That's my thoughts on it. What about the wacky world of Darin?
Well, I definitely think that people are seeing something. It's not just weekend warriors who are running into these things occasionally. It's experienced huntsmen, people who know what a bear looks like. They know what they're, and I tend to lean towards the biblical Nephilim idea because I am a Christian. So, the Genesis 6 idea that these might be remnants of, depending on who you talk to, either the Nephilim or the Raphaim, but there's also definitely a supernatural quality to them. I think there are physical, beings. People aren't seeing apparitions, but when the tracks just disappear and there's nothing nearby that they could have leaped onto or whatever, the things, and there's no evidence of the tracks being covered up in any way. That leads me to think that there could be a transdimensional thing at work here. Often now we're seeing people coming forth saying, we see these things and we also simultaneously, or in that same time frame, also see strange lights in the sky, UFOs, other things, ball lightning, all these other things that coincide, and they could all be related.
Okay. Christy.
Yeah. All I know is I don't want to run into one. I don't want to be one of those people, because I would have to say something.
What if it's like Harry and the Hendersons and he's gentle and nice?
No, I hear those stories of them throwing giant boulders at campers and stuff like that. It's terrifying.
The one that scares me is the one about the guy that's just in his tent minding his own business and the fingers drag across the outside of his tent. That's the point when I search for something to end my own life in the tent. That's when I wish I was on the submarine that's going to crush depth. I'm not coming out of this tent. I don't want to know. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But I don't think my perception of these critters, if they're real, is that they are not inherently aggressive toward humans.
Right.
They would much rather avoid you. I do think that they have some curiosity. They want to know what we're about. They'll come down to your vehicle or your campsite. But, I honestly think it's,
right.
Exactly, Levi, and welcome. I think it's one of those things where, like, we've seen the videos of the bear that's walking around the house in Alaska, and the guy goes, and freaks out because it's a bear, and the bear freaks out, it's a human, and he runs. I think that's what a real up-close encounter with a Bigfoot would be like. I think they would be, and haul ass. I hope.
Yeah. The Native American tribes all regarded them differently, though. I mean, the Potawatomi thought of them as that's a Wisconsin tribe, typically. As friends of the forest, like gardeners, basically. But the Ojibwe and the Menominee had a kill on sight rule. There's they had different experiences, probably based off of different, or they had different policies based off of different experiences with them, because there was a lack of understanding.
The Comanche War with the Bigfoot. Yeah. Have you seen that one on War Stories?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that. Yeah, that was
I recently came across that myself.
Yeah, that was the Comanche went to war with these guys.
Yeah.
There's and there's also ties to other giants as well. The story of Lovelock Cave, for example, in Lovelock, Texas, where they were able to, they found where these giants were sleeping and built a fire at the front of the cave so that they suffocated. And then you can go into that cave today, and there's some very interesting art on the walls. I used to think that maybe they might be real, but I don't want to do. I'm saying that.
All right. First of all, happy birthday, KSSS.
Yes, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Welcome. And then I bring that back up. I used to think maybe Bigfoot might be real, but I no longer do. I'm not just saying that because I know the guy who was the Lizard Man in 1989. He was your nephew.
Or the nephew of the Lizard Man guy?
I don't know who Lizard Man is. I don't know that one.
You never heard of the Lizard Man?
Nope.
I have. I can't remember like the region that the Lizard Man comes from, but off the top of my head. But I've definitely heard of the Lizard Man.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Christy.
Oh, yeah. No, I was wondering where Darin likes to go for his information on cryptids.
Several different sources. You can find books, you can find things. But one of the big ones that I'll just plug, they don't need our plug, but because they're pretty big in the world of cryptids. But there's a website called Sasquatch Chronicles, where they have a free side and then they have a pay side. And really, the good stuff is on the free side, believe it or not. The pay side is just more content. It's stuff that and in fact, I'll find a link for you. for one of theirs in particular that is a very good story.
What about Thinker Thunker?
Well, Thinker Thunker, he's a little more commercial than I'd like him to be. I like MK Davis. His website is Greenwave 2010 FB. It's a very nondescript YouTube channel.
Well, what I find most compelling about Thinker Thunker is he's willing to be wrong,
right,
and has been a couple of times, and will publicly call himself out when he's wrong.
Yeah.
But he does basically photographic and audio in-depth examination of footage and recordings.
Yeah.
And that which he does share, he's not telling you what to believe. He just goes, here's what I found. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the honesty of that approach.
Yeah. Thinker Thunker, he tries to funnel people into a pay site and pay with Patreon and stuff. I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, but there's something about
that's true. He started doing that a couple of years ago, Darin. I was with him before he did that, and when he did, I was pissed at him. I sent him a, what the fuck are you doing, man? Why are you hiding behind a paywall? I'm not gonna buy your shit.
Right. I mean, he's got sells hats with his logo on it, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with any of that. But it was just his delivery. Sometimes it's just the delivery of somebody, their inflections, things like that. It just got tiresome to me. He has this cadence to how he speaks in his videos. Same thing with if you've ever seen the Dogman Encounters YouTube channel with a guy named Vic Cundiff. Vic Cundiff he uploads these videos, and he's got one of these puker voices. When I was in radio, we used to call these guys pukers. They would be like, well, today we're gonna get, that kind of voice, where he's just really, animated, and he clearly re-records his part of the conversation later.
Oh,
and then he ended up being a guest on one of those late night AM radio shows. I think it was in the desert. What was it? Late night in the desert. Yeah, and it was the one that Art Bell used to do, and his successor was this chick. I can't remember her name. Sorry. Interviewed him, and he would not do anything on her show except refer to videos by date and number for people if they were interested. He wouldn't tell any stories, and so she finally kicked him off after about 20 minutes. He was scheduled to be there for 2 hours.
Yeah. If all you're doing is feeding back to your own site and shilling for yourself, you're not a guest. You're a commercial.
Yeah. So,
Mo and I went to a Bigfoot convention because we wanted somebody to learn more, but we actually left feeling discouraged and believing less in Bigfoot.
Oh no!
And bring up that previous comment. What was it? No, Yvette's other one.
Oh.
I'm going to assume that's as a quantum physicist. First of all, Yvette's a quantum physicist. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not an everyday job. There's Sheldon. We believe there are multiple universes. There's the theory that these universes cross over and explains how a UFO could traverse our universe, and the other cryptids also. I've heard that. That, and I have nothing to say one way or the other about it. I don't know.
Hey, Glenn.
It's Glenn Fleming, the most handsome man on the internet. We've been here. We took the week of Thanksgiving off, but wonderful to see you, Glenn. Glenn Fleming over in the UK, creator of Hatch and other great works. One of my favorite creators. Glenn, I don't know why you haven't been on the show. Reach out.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Yes, I am not. Shadowhawk Talks made a good point. Yes, I am not D-Wag. D-Wag is a different gentleman entirely. Same phonetic name, but he spells it differently.
The other Darin Wagner. Now, what was funny was we had both these guys backstage, D-Wag and Wagner. I say Wagner to differentiate.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were cutting up, these two, and D-Wag goes, he gets asked if he's the guy doing DEMI-FOOT. And he finally goes, you know what? I'm just going to embrace it and say, yeah, and pin the link and help you get some sign-ups. And I'm like, see, that's teamwork right there. When you sacrifice your identity.
Yeah, I was when I came into this community, he was already here, so I wasn't going to say, "Hey, Mister, you need to change, call yourself something else." I wasn't going to do that. So the whole Wagner thing, that is how, when my family first moved, to the United States from Germany so many generations ago, that is how that was more properly responded or pronounced, and then they Americanized it.
Herr Wagner, was ist los?
Yeah, exactly. 9. But
Nicht ist los. Yeah, so as we follow DEMI-FOOT on his first adventure here, I mean, is he aware that he's somehow been infused with Bigfoot stuff?
Yes. Okay. He's made aware as soon as he realizes the change has happened, and he also, in this family that he belonged to, the Jaegers, he was pretty much the last member of the family left. The only other living Jaeger is killed in the same process that changes him.
Okay.
So he ends up coming at odds with the government contractor who staged his death, and also or tried to kill him and his other family member, an uncle of his. And so it becomes a simple revenge story about partway through. And when this is not a character that he's not a Mary Sue. He has to earn all of his victories, and even though he may look like this big freaky monster thing, he thinks he's going to be able to get his revenge rather easily against the people he's trying to get revenge on. He finds out almost immediately that you're actually kind of in a lot of trouble now, and so one of the things I always kind of hate is when they introduce a character, and yes, I understand you're a comic book creator, you created this awesome character you think is awesome, you want other people to think they're awesome, so you have them do awesome things, but they got to earn it.
Yeah, I always like the idea of a flawed character, and they had to build up to it.
Right.
Well, a lot of people don't know that the Hulk early on, and even into the 20 years into the character's run, he lost plenty of fights. There were fights where he'd run into the Juggernaut, and Juggernaut would stomp a hole in his ass, to borrow a Doc Blaylock expression, and so he was not, people think that once he gets up to a certain point he's unstoppable. Yeah, there's characters that can get the drop on him.
Machine Man beat him.
Yes, Machine Man.
Oh, he's the Machine Man.
Characters like the Silver Surfer can just zap him, and that's the you're done, that kind of thing. So, it's and so when you introduce a character, they gotta dig down. You gotta show them struggling. You gotta show them, and they don't have to triumph the first time.
Correct.
Either.
Correct.
So let's
hit this real quick. Here's the sign up link, boys and girls. Listen, signing up to be kept abreast of developments as this project comes to fruition costs you absolutely nothing. So there's the link. Get over and sign up. My man has been stuck at 38 signups for 2 forevers. Let's at least get 2, 3, 4 more. Let's get him to 40 signups. Keep in mind, this is the great John Dillard on art. And Darin Wagner, I can vouch for. Dude can write. He sent me his book, Captain Steel, and other short stories. I read them. They were very enjoyable. Great stories. So this is going to be a treat. One of the best artists, and I think a fantastic up-and-coming writer. Bam. What more could you want? Sign up.
I know, right?
Sign up and let me know in the chat that you signed up.
This is the first image when John Dillard and I were. I came to him. I said, "Look, I got this idea. I kind of want you to realize it. Help me realize it, right?" And I showed him pictures of characters that I didn't want him to be. But the most important thing is I told him I gave him the same instructions that Stan Lee gave Jack Kirby when they were designing the Hulk. I said, look, he's going to be a monster, but he has to be a good-looking monster. He can't be so horrible looking that the reader will fail to identify with. And I think that's one of the big problems. That's why I think Swamp Thing is more successful than Man Thing. That's why I think that Venom never took off as an anti-hero, is because he's got the tongue with teeth on it and all kinds of stuff.
Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just diss Man Thing on my show?
No, I didn't. I just said that I think that Swamp Thing was a more successful character, and he had, I think he had 2 long-running series, whereas I think Man Thing was relegated to the 70s for the most part, wasn't he?
I may allow Darin to stay on the show.
Don't get me wrong, I love them both. I love both characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they're and I like Man Thing as well. I just have to say, it's kind of like who has more issues, but anyway, trying to move away from the
well, the numbers don't lie,
What we see here is exactly what I was going for. You'll notice that he's got, it stands out. 2 things stand out. He's got this executive contour haircut here. And because if he didn't have that, it would be, covering his ears, and he would be looking, very much like what you'd expect from a Sasquatch. He's also got UDT shorts because he was a Navy diver. And for those of you who don't know what UDT shorts, those are the khaki canvas shorts that frogmen wear.
Overly tight, very uncomfortable.
They have a 3-inch inseam, and they're very durable. And they also dry very quickly once you're out of the water. So divers, and Navy SEALs all wear them.
Steamer. Does he use Nair?
He uses pomade.
No, I mean on the parts of him that are not fur. Is he just slathering Nair on?
No. He's okay. So the idea here is that he does still have hair, as you can see on this part of his arm here.
Okay, all right.
But it's just so thin that you can see the skin on the other side.
He's a calico.
Yeah.
Calico.
Yeah. Calico, right.
So what's the if you were going to equate his vibe to another character, is it the Hulk? Is it Beast? Who would it be?
Well,
who would he vibe best with?
Honestly, I think that he would vibe best with Swamp Thing, because he doesn't have the same problem. He doesn't have the Jekyll and Hyde element.
Right.
He's changed, and like I said, that status quo might change in the future, but for right now, he's stuck like this, and he doesn't change back and forth. And because if you have a character that changes back and forth, then you have to create a reason why he changes back and forth, or a process involved. And if it's something boring like just he wills himself into this larger, powerful form, that's kind of blasé. But if you say that it's stress, well, then you're starting to traipse on Hulk territory, and then you don't want to do that. And you want him to stand out a little bit. Nobody's going to mistake this character for the Hulk anyway, visually,
right.
even the gray version. But no, he's
Shadowhawk is the man. There's you a sign up.
Thank you, Shadowhawk.
Cass says I'm stuck like this. I can relate.
Yeah.
We all relate a little bit to that. My alter ego is a young, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Shut up. Hey,
so
this is a fun-looking book to me, Darin, and I know the intensity level at which you write. So I'm looking forward to this. I really am, and I'm really looking forward to my free copy. But if I got to, I'll buy it. Damn it!
No, I think
there you go. We've talked about this. Will he have any other pseudo magical or magical properties, or is it just pure brute strength?
Okay, so when you listen to stories that are told on Sasquatch Chronicles, where they bring in real people who have claimed to have had encounters, there's a whole myriad of things that are about the Sasquatch that they, as far as what they can do. They're not just a brute that knocks over trees and things. There's obviously the ability to stealth themselves. They are able to hide, and we go into how he's able to do that. This idea that if they hug a tree, they literally seem to blend in with the tree, and they become
Rex.
part of the tree.
Hey, Rex.
They
have
also
a looming presence.
Yes, they also. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, there's also evidence that they have an infrasonic attack, which is the same thing that tigers will use, for example, in some cats, in order to stun prey momentarily. They project an ultra low frequency. This is also how elephants communicate with each other over long distances as well.
Right.
Where people, what a crap cannon is?
No.
This was an ultra low frequency crowd dispersal experimental weapon that was developed in California.
Oh, the brown note.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where it causes people to piss and shit themselves uncontrollably. You can't control yourself because the vibrations hit your innards, and you just. Anyway, Sasquatch have been known to do this. They can make grown men piss themselves and things like that. And
do you really think that would take ultrasonics though?
Well,
if I saw an actual Bigfoot, I don't think he would have to hit me
I
with
really
that.
love the idea. It's a good idea.
It is a good idea.
I'm just saying he wouldn't have to go to the trouble. I would just go ahead and shit myself.
These are people that actually do this before they actually see it.
Yeah.
They're like, it happens. Like, what the? It's part of their.
Yeah, I
confusion.
remember Survivor Man, was it Les Stroud, talking about that watchful presence, intense watchfulness that they could sense.
Right.
I would think it would be great if he had the ability to. My character Jake Bishop has the ability to hang a glamour on himself. He calls it a glam, and it's he makes himself radiate being intimidating. he can make himself seem harmless and small at will. And my thought was, when you and I were first talking about DEMI-FOOT, that would be a really cool ability if he could just turn up his threat level. Just stand in the shadows and just emanate threat.
Yep. There's documented interviews where people say that if they want you to be calm, you'll be calm. If they want you to go away, they will cause you to just pack up and run, and you won't even have seen anything. So there's that. There's also, and related to that, Sasquatch have vocalizations.
Well, what about DEMI-FOOT though? What about DEMI-FOOT himself?
Well, I was getting to that. So a Sasquatch, when you listen to things like the Sierra sounds that were recorded many years ago that have the vocalization of Sasquatch, it sounds like they have more than one set of vocal cords. Well, Jake Ear doesn't have more than one set of vocal cords. But he has extremely strong one set. And so he's able to do a lot of the same things they can do, but not exactly the same.
Right.
And so there's that. There's also, again, a great example is that where he differs from an actual Sasquatch is he's not as big as they are. He's 7 feet tall, weighs about 980 pounds, and whereas the Sasquatch that he runs into are not just one head tall, but often 2 heads taller. They're closer to 11, 12 feet. He resembles to them a young one, like a youngster, like an adolescent one.
Right.
He's just a baby.
And when you see them, you'll see an obvious difference. Eventually, they have virtually no neck.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people report on, especially the ones that are sighted around here. And he of course has a neck, but there's a joke that bodybuilders have no neck. He has a bodybuilder body, but he does have a discernible neck there. The other big thing is his foot is like a normal human foot. Human foot has an arch in it, but what they believe the Sasquatch has. Is a mid-tarsal break in their foot, which means it's an extra joint,
hinged foot,
where when they walk, somebody who's not aware of this, it looks like they have flippers. They're wearing flippers because of the way their toes come down separately from their heel. Yeah. And that also means that they can walk quieter because they're essentially rolling. I'm not on camera, but here, right? I mean, I can't do it with my hand, but you get the idea. It's our feet have an arch because we're designed for carrying weight and things like that. Theirs is more like an ape's that is designed to move quietly.
All right, we're coming up on showtime here. I could go on about this. I love Bigfoot. Always have. I like this idea, Darin. I think you've got a winner on your hands here.
Love this idea.
Boys and girls, if you haven't yet done so, the link is in the chat to go over and sign up to follow developments of this forthcoming project. There is no cost. It doesn't cost you a thing to sign up. Get on over and sign up. And also, if you know some other collectors who might want to get in on a good-looking book, a good-looking project, how about sharing the link with some of your friends? That would be awesome. So I want to thank Darin for coming out. Darin, I'm sure we'll probably hang out later today backstage because it's what we do. And, unlike us, Tanner actually has a life, so he doesn't hang out as much.
I got obligations.
But I want
AKA kids.
I want to thank my beautiful co-hosts as usual, the terrific Tanner Hurley and the charismatic Christy Phillips. We can never get Kitty on here. Her ass is always running around doing some new adventure. We may get her one day, but in the meantime, we just get Christy.
Sorry.
I want to thank the chat. You guys, as always, absolutely rock. KSSS, Apex. Rex in the chat. Abbo in the house.
And everybody.
Hal Deer was here.
Levi
Skeen, a good guy, great artist. Love that guy. By the way, Levi's got some art in my novella, A Damn Dirty Thing.
Nice.
Cool.
And it looks really good. But anyway, it's time to wrap this thing up. Tanner, do me a favor, will you?
What's that?
Play us out of here.
I sure will.
Bye.
Look, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm tired of talking to you.
And don't think it hasn't been a little slice of heaven, because it hasn't.
Well, I finally got the last word.
Good night, everybody! Quitting time! Quitting time!